If you've been around the channel, you'll occasionally see footage of Squid Game being used as filler material. I don't know why I used it either, but I do know that at least 5 of y'all would like to know which TF2 character would win Squid Game. Some quick rules before we begin. All characters participate without their weapons or items. However, they're allowed to use their powers as long as said usage doesn't violate the rules of the game. For example, the Bombonomicon can levitate to get a combat advantage, but not to cheese the glass stepping stone. For practicality, I'll be excluding certain animals, fan-on characters, historical figures, characters with insufficient screen time, or crossover characters. So fellas like the Train God, the Observer, Davy Jones, Bonzo the Circus God, Toastmaster, Pumpkin Mobster, Jack, Olivia, Park Warden, God and Devil. I hope everyone can understand. With all that out of the way, joining this game of Squid, we have Scout, Soldier, Pyro, Demo Man, Heavy, Engineer, Medic, Sniper, Spy, Administrator, Miss Pauling, the Messenger, the Director, Safenia Man, Redmond Man, Blue Tark Man, Gray Man, Robot Scout, Robot Soldier, Robot Pyro, Robot Demoman, Robot Heavy, Mecha Engineer, Robot Medic, Robot Sniper, Robot Spy, Classic Scout, Classic Sniper, Classic Soldier, Classic Demoman, Classic Heavy, Classic Pyro, Classic Spy, Saxton Hale, Mr. Bidwell, Mr. Ready, Jerry, Standard Hippie, Lecture Valley Hippie, Male Scientist Hippie, Female Scientist Hippie, Engineer's Father Fred, Miss D. Groot, Bill Bell, Larna, Radigan Koneger, Heavy's Mother, Bronislava, Jana, Yana, Marasmus, Bombinomikon, Monoculus, Horseless Headless Horseman, Islander, Charles Darling, Maggie, Mayor Mike, Poopy Joe, Nicholas Crowder / Old Nick, the Yeti. The first game is called Red Light Green Light. The players must make their way to the end of the field while being mindful of the red light signal coming from the giant doll. Since everyone here is either a war criminal, genocide orchestrator, mentally ill, radicalized, or apathetic, safe to say not a lot of eliminations would occur here. Folks like Medic, Sniper, Spy, Administrator, Gray Man, and Charles Darling should have no issue here. And who else would be better at operating under verbal cues than the minor attracted people, the Messenger? Looking at the hippies, Lecture Valley Hippie has a pretty good chance of making it through this game. If they were willing to abuse dolphins for the crime of being offensive to insects, then they can probably stomach this game. Not to mention, they did a lot of volunteering, so agility is not an issue. Poopy Joe and Mayor Mike might initially struggle a bit, but seeing how Poopy Joe is a trained professional and Mayor Mike is willing to listen to others, they will catch on and barely make it across. The simple fact that Larna wants to die makes it unlikely that she'll make it, but I've decided to ignore that because it'll be more fun that way. Let's see how far she can go. Of course, not everyone can make it through. The first 2 eliminations, Redmond and Blue Dark Man. Let's be real here, they would not even be bothered to listen to the rules. But they would know that it's a race and would try to one-up the others, paying no attention to the red light. Similarly, Safenia Man is eliminated. He too would not bother to listen to the rules. His vanity renders him deaf, dumb, and blind. Jerry and the Director will freeze in place out of fear. The Standard and Scientist hippies are the next to go. They might have been radicalized, but at their core they're pacifists. So safe to say they will flock to the locked exit and become one with the dirt. And of course, the Yeti is not a trained professional, so it will lose its marbles at the sound of gunshots and rush forward mindlessly. That doesn't mean the game is over, though. The simple fact that the Yeti kind got hunted to extinction proves that it's not unstoppable. Anyway, with 52 players remaining, we enter round 2, Honeycomb, better known as cutting shapes in a cookie with a needle. To pass this game, one would need patience and steady hands. Many players here would pass with flying colors. Medic is experienced in biobabble. Engineer and Radigan worked on machines with small parts regularly. Demoman made a lot of bombs. Sniper once waited an entire day for a shot. Administrator and Gray Man have their 100-year plans. Marasmus did a lot of rituals back in the day. And Bill Bell built a lot of rockets. Before anyone asks, the Heavy can survive this game. Despite being very strong and having gigantic hands, he is steady-handed enough to reliably use a minigun, drive a truck, and even manage to obtain a degree in literature somehow. so I think he'll do just fine. Barely passing, we have the Scout. At first, it doesn't look very likely, him being too quick for his own good and all, but considering how he willingly goes for the slow way to get rich. Buy Tom Jones merch, then waits for him to die. Chances are he'll take it slow with this task and not mess it up. At first, I thought the Bombonomicon would fail here, but judging from its dialogue and Hell Tower, it's willing to do the small stuff first to hone its skills. And it possessed young Tavish in the past, granting it knowledge of human anatomy and some of Dimmerman's memories, so if it's allowed to give itself a pair of arms to do the challenge, it'll pass. The same can be said for the Islander. I thought it was not going to make it, but then I noticed the cans in the background of one of the comics. There's no can opener to be seen. This must mean that the sword opened all of them. Judging from the cuts, the blade can pass. Not surviving this game, we have quite a few contestants. Firstly, most of Greyman's robots. Robot Scout, Robot Soldier, Robot Pyro, Robot Demoman, and Robot Heavy. While they would have little issue with steadiness, I don't think these models are designed with finger flexibility and gentleness in mind. Similarly, Monoculus and Horseman are eliminated here. They too primarily use overwhelming brute force, and thus this challenge would be completely alien to them. Though eliminating them might be even harder for the PlayStation guards. Maybe they'll call the Ghostbusters. Barely passing the last round, Miss DeGroat is getting eliminated. This is to be expected. Her lack of vision would bog her down eventually. Saxton, Hale, and Maggie will undoubtedly struggle here, but Maggie will be able to barely pull it off. Hale will most likely break the cookie or resort to escaping for sure. Yes, he can control his strength, but this challenge is something else. And lastly, I will be receiving threatening letters for this, but the soldier is the last to be eliminated in this round. While his hands can be steady, his patience is like that of a bucket. It's not much. Not to mention he's quite stubborn at times, making mistakes more likely. With 42 players remaining, we enter the bonus round Midnight Brawl. It's caused by the lack of food and water. As for the rules, there are none. Survive until morning. There are quite a few shoo-ins for survival here, so I'll point out the less obvious ones. Despite popular belief, Mr. Bidwell and Mr. Reddy will survive despite the fact that Hale got eliminated. They are mildly enhanced by Australium, just enough to get the benefits without becoming too violent, and are experienced in persuasion. Not to mention their personal experience, Bidwell outran Serif Industries security while carrying a crate of stuff, while Reddy survived first contact with Greyman's robots. Heavy's family can throw hands. Bilbel and Larna are quick on their feet, enough to catch Team Fortress unaware. Poopy Joe should be able to hide or use his status to form a neutral party, and I don't think I need to elaborate on the magical items. Erasmus will also survive this, mainly by default because he's immortal. It sucks to be him. Not surviving the night, prepare to say goodbye. The first to die will probably be the messenger. Greyman will use what he has to get rid of the administrator, so of course she will use her least valuable underling as an improvised shield. Even if that wasn't the case, their lack of independent experience and the fact that they're minor attracted people will make them easy pickings that no one would feel bad for. Since Administrator and Greyman will clash, safe to say that Grey will lose Robot Sniper, Robot Spy, and Medibot. Mecha Engineer will probably survive though because it's very tanky, has limited teleportation, and is highly adaptive thanks to having more computational power. As for the Classic crew, Classic Heavy will have to say goodbye to Classic Scout, Classic Sniper, Classic Soldier, Classic Pyro, and Classic Engineer. Sniper and Pyro are too sadistic, so their bloodlust will likely blind them, leading them to their deaths. Scout and Soldier are minor attracted people, a very bad trait to have in this scenario. If this were on the X website, they would have survived. And as for Classic Engineer or Fred, he'll most likely sacrifice himself to save his son. Probably for the best, he is a bit out of shape for fighting anyway, and he can't even hide because of his metal legs. The Lecture Valley hippie is the next to go. It's already bad enough that they probably won't be able to fight. What sealed their fate is their sense of moral superiority. Not only will they decline the offer to group up, but they will also attempt to get involved in the brawl and be annoying as all hell. Not that it matters, they will be taken care of swiftly. The same can be said for Nicholas Crowder or Old Nick. While he is capable of fighting, he manages to outmaneuver Australia and fight off the Mafia. The fact that he's an arrogant evildoer makes it pretty clear that he'll try to mess with the neutral party and get shanked for the troubles. Lastly, Mayor Mike will be eliminated, mainly because of his outspoken showmanship, a trait almost as bad as being attracted to minors for this particular night, especially when it's on an idiot. Not to mention, he has no fighting experience. A bit unfortunate, without that trait he could have survived. With half the total players gone, we enter the next game, Tug-O-War. Even though this is a team-based game, I will not put them into teams. To avoid accusations of rigging the game, the chances of survival will be based on one's strength and pulling the rope and capacity for teamwork. Most of the mercenaries should have no issue. Heavy's family fought off bears, Mecha Engineer has anime on its back, Marasmus can match Soldier's strength, and I guess the magical items can mentally hinder their opposition. Barely passing, we have Administrator and Greyman, mainly because of how Australium provides a boost in strength for both the users and all those who are near the device. Oh yeah, I said most of the mercenaries. Scout, Sniper, and Spy would not make it. Unlike the others, these three operate mainly on their own, so not much teamwork there. And as for their physical strength, they're on the lower end of the team. At least Scout could survive the fall by double jumping. Sniper's biological parents are also ending their journey here. They're not physically capable and are very selfish, so this is to be expected. Poopy Joe is the next to go. Judging from how his mission is a solo mission, safe to say there was not much training for teamwork. He's also not that strong. 24 players remain as we reach the 5th game, Marbles. The competition involved players choosing one partner with whom they would play a marble game of their choice, with the losers eliminated and the winners progressing to the next round. Sounds good, but the players will choose their partner before learning about the rules of the game. So here are some scenarios that could occur. Of course, Miss Pauling and Major Engineer will take the L to ensure that their superior gets a pass. Is it fair? No, it's not. But it is what it is. Classic Heavy will pair up with Classic Demo, where they will struggle with the marbles as they both want to live, which will result in mutual elimination due to the time limit. Heavy will pair up with his mother to protect her. The realization that they'll be going against each other will hit like a train. Judging from how in the comic, Heavy's mother was willing to stay behind, she will do the same thing here. To say that Heavy is sad would be an understatement. Dell and Radigan could happen in two ways. Either Radigan takes one for his grandson, or he won't because the Australium changed him. So they play marbles, and Dell comes out on top thanks to his calmer head. Medic will pair up with Demoman after failing to pair up with Heavy. Unsurprisingly, Medic screws over the Demoman and tricks him into tackling the guards. Charles will pair up with his employee Margaret, where Charles screws over Mags by becoming a low-tier god. Marasmus will pick the Bombinomicon. Once the rules are revealed, Marasmus has the advantage here, as violence is not allowed, so they'll have to play marbles, something that he had most certainly played before. Unfortunately for him, the book has picked up on manipulation during its time in Canada, so it's more likely that it'll trick Marasmus into lowering his guard, then pull a fast one on the old fool. The Islander will pair up with Mr. Bidwell. Demoman was going to pair up with it, but Medic pulled a fast one, so the sword picked the one that it vaguely recognizes. Anyway, once the rules are revealed, the sword would be very disappointed by it. Since Bidwell is experienced in communicating with folks from all over the place, being a liaison and all, he can probably convince the sword to simply leave the game if he doesn't want to continue. The sword would most likely agree, hand over its marbles, then disappear without a sound, confusing the heck out of the guards. Shauna will pair up with Yana and in true big sister fashion, take the L so her little sister won't have to. Classic Spy is forced to pair up with Pyro. He thought it would be easy, but in the absence of fire, Pyro becomes a super genius capable of running a company with great success, despite not being able to speak. Classic Spy is doomed. That leaves Mr. Reddy and Bronislava, denying Classic Spy any funny business, unfortunately for the girl. Reddy is more exposed to Australium than Bidwell, who was given the occasional off-site mission, not to mention his first encounter with the robots. This makes him more open to violence, so when push comes to shove, he'll trick her into giving him her marbles and move on to the next round. Glass Stepping Stone, where just like the previous game, The players must pick a number without context. The number will turn out to be the order in which they play the guessing game of doom. Fortunately, the remaining players will be able to recognize what the numbers mean pretty quickly. Knowingly going first, the Bombonomicon will take the risk. At this point in the game, it will be pretty darn confident in itself. Will it regret this? Probably not if it means making things easier for the remaining mercenaries. Pyro, Yana, Heavy, Engineer, Reddy, and Bidwell will all play it safe and try to obtain one of the middle numbers. Too bad playing it safe just simply isn't enough in this scenario. Gray Man would have survived. But unfortunately for him, Medic is right behind him, and seeing how the tempered glass can support the weight of 2 people, Medic will likely do a little trolling and send the Pale Man to the afterlife for a family reunion. The Medic will be the first to make it across, followed by Charles Darling and Administrator. Not very surprising considering that they're both masterminds who plot behind the scenes. Of course, they'll try to go last. The 7th and final game, the Squid Game. There are 2 sets of rules for this game. The original children's game rules, or the fight to the death rules, since none of the players, except for maybe Marasmus, knows about the original children's game. We're going for the fight to the death rules. Naturally, we get Medic and Administrator versus Charles Darling. At first, things aren't looking good, but judging from how Charles Darling is not Australium enhanced, safe to say he relies upon psychology, which was mainly used on animals, and various techniques to make the most out of his strength. Unfortunately for him, the players are all given a knife. So safe to say that Charles will be overwhelmed, but not before getting some jabs at the Administrator. Very sad, but no amount of power-ups will cover the fact that she's a
skinny old bitch.
It also doesn't help that Charles will be focusing on her for personal reasons. That leaves Medic the last man standing. Winner of this Squid Game, congratulations.